Welcome to episode 10 of the Box In Podcast. I'm Garrity McCosker.
And I'm Trevor Zambrano.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Can you believe we made it to 10 episodes?
I can't. It's been 10 weeks, right?
10 weeks, yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, right? It's been a lot of fun. I was hoping this episode we could do a little bit of a money episode.
Yeah.
Do you remember in our first promo we said all the things we're going to talk about? We're like, we're going to talk about boxing, we're going to talk about politics, pop culture. We've touched on a little bit, dabbled in a little bit of everything. We even got to food last week.
Yeah, which I actually enjoy. I got a lot of good feedback about the episode of us cooking.
Yeah.
So who would have known?
Likewise, people were into that. But I guess that leaves money. That was the last thing we didn't talk about. Since that promo.
So what exactly were we going to do?
Can you make money in boxing?
Can you make money in boxing?
Yeah. Give us your vision and I'll share my thoughts.
I take a deep breath, right? Obviously, we know that there's people that are multimillionaires in boxing right now. Floyd Mayweather is going to come to mind immediately. Everybody, Manny Pacquiao, and so forth and so forth. What I like to tell people that is in boxing, it's a more hyper exaggerated world of society. Which so sometimes the
haves and the have-nots?
The haves and the have-nots,
sure.
exactly.
Exactly.
So sometimes, specifically, we're going to hear people talk about, the 1/3 of the 1%. Not to sound like Noam Chomsky, but this idea. But
Noam?
Yeah,
isn't it Noam? Okay,
no, not to sound like Chomsky, right?
Oh man.
But he's always talking about the 1/3 of the 1%. Oh, you heard Bernie Sanders talk about the 1/3 of the 1%, right? I actually think it's probably worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I put out a poll question on my Instagram to several fighters that I'm friends with, and the question was, how do you make money in the sport of boxing?
Yeah.
There's already a loaded question because it comes from the idea that I'm actually asking it because to a non-boxer you think, oh, you make money because you turn pro, right?
Yeah.
I'm asking it loaded, like, what is the way to make money if there is one?
Well,
the best response I got was from Flavio. He said, "You don't.
You don't. Right,
you just don't." I mean, talk a little bit to that about the way, the route it takes coming up in the sport.
Well, if you're not like what's considered a blue chip prospect, right?
Yeah.
If you're not someone that has
signed, came out of the Olympics, signed right away to a big promoter.
If you have multiple national championships as an amateur, or maybe even you're an international champion, or you're from the Olympics, you're going to get a signing bonus. I remember we had Sean Estrada, and he talked about getting a $250,000 signing bonus. But as you and I both know,
did he?
Remember it didn't work out.
I thought we were talking about Frankie Gomez.
No. Sean said that he got $250,000 signing bonus.
Did he? Oh, wow.
And that he'd only gotten $15,000 of it. And out of that $15,000, he'd only gotten
because there were stipulations.
There were, I don't know.
I forget.
But boxing is a very dirty business. So we're talking about fighters, and here's someone like Sean who's coming out of the 2018 Olympics that's getting a signing bonus.
2008, but yeah.
Yeah, 2008. 2008. Sorry, 2008.
Time's flying by.
Time's flying, right? 2018 Olympic year. Next year is the Olympics. But yeah, so we're just talking about money and prospects of money being there for young guys. First of all, boxing is, I think, the only sport that I can think of that you can turn professional and you don't have to necessarily meet a criteria. Am I wrong about that?
You are 100% correct.
Yeah.
Well, maybe any combat sport, but
same thing with
traditionally boxing.
Yeah.
So
I
appreciate you knocking down the credibility to the 5 people watching that know I'm a pro boxer and are impressed by that. Now they no longer are. But basically, if you're showing up and you're willing to take a punch, you could technically become a pro.
There's certain athletic commissions. For example, California, I know, is much more strict about the way that they go about it. So if you don't have any amateur experience, I've actually been involved in a show before. The show was in Vista or Oceanside. It was a long time ago, a couple years ago. Anyways, one of the guys there didn't have any experience. And you're never going to believe this. I wish I could remember the kid's name. The commission asked him to spar 3 rounds the day of weigh-in. So you can imagine, first of all, whatever weight it is that he's...
Who was paying the commissioner to be able to...
Yeah, but...
Because they need to fight so badly.
Well, was it? I actually thought it was a good look from the commission. This wasn't even a show. This is a local show where it was like heavily loaded with A-sides. Definitely they had, he had people that he was getting fights for that he had relationships with. But it was we know that guy that's weighing in, and I think he was weighing in around 54, 47, I can't remember. But he's basically sacrificed himself to get there for 20 minutes, which is just to weigh in. And then the commission to go there, the California Commission, which I think is a good idea, but probably not the day of the weigh-in. And the weigh-in was at a gym. I'll never forget it. He had to spar 3 rounds. I watched the guy spar, and I said, well, the guy can fight. The guy's good to go. It made sense, but it didn't make sense that they put him through that physical test the day before a fight. He lost the fight the next day. He lost it in a pretty close, contested
bout. Oh, for real? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I remember thinking to myself, too, man, if he wouldn't have sparred yesterday, all dehydrated, perhaps he would have had a little bit more juice. And
boy, I hope he made poor kid. I hope he made more than $800.
No, I mean, same thing being in the back. Listen, this is something to talk about. I've been with kids before that are debuting, and they're losing $600 to $900. So how does something like that happen? Well, how much did you have to pay for?
You got to sell tickets.
Yeah. Well, that's
so basically, it's like pay to play.
Yeah.
Which is, it's no different than, some sort of
Explain,
multi-level
I think
marketing
this
scheme.
is actually really, really good for the listeners out there that don't know a lot about boxing.
Yeah, man.
Explain how many, because for the most part, from what I know, is that and I've actually helped a mixed martial arts show together, an MMA show in Texas. I did a couple of them. They'd contacted me and they'd asked me, hey, can you help us put a show together? And the first thing that they were surprised about, because these guys have nothing to do with combat sports, was my demand that these guys have to sell. They got to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, how many tickets do they have to sell? I go, they have to sell $30 a piece. And I go, don't worry, we're going to give them incentive. We'll give them $5 or $10 a ticket so that they can make a little money on the back end. But so now you have a fighter that might, they're trying to create money for themselves. Maybe they're selling 50 tickets, and for them, if it was $10, it equals $500. And just the amount of money that is being spent to get a kid there where he's about to debut, the amount of money. Look, winning isn't cheap.
Yeah, winning's not cheap.
Grant isn't cheap, right?
Yeah.
Grant is really not cheap.
Oh, I thought you were talking about winning.
I'm talking about the boxing gear.
Winning is a brand from Japan. It's really high quality sparring gloves.
Oftentimes,
I thought you meant just to get to a win. That's not cheap either.
But just to even think about the amount of an investment that a fighter is going to spend to get themselves to that place where they're about to debut, and then if you're not being looked after, or if you're not a prospect, or you're not someone that is getting all the accolades or having the successful amateur career and so forth. But how many tickets did you have to sell for your fight? Do you remember?
To be honest, I don't think I had to sell, but I sold my first fight. I sold maybe 100.
Okay. Did you get any kickback as far as?
You know what? I didn't actually.
Yeah, well.
Because I was just overdoing it.
Should have been with me. I don't know. At least you should have gotten $5 to $10 back a ticket. That's good money.
The different situation in that one, but.
So and then you also have to pay to explain how much you had to pay for your medicals. Is it still?
They paid for that, but.
No, they pay for your.
So it's a little bit different.
So you can see that. So what I can see right there is a relationship that's reciprocal.
Yeah, at least in what.
Yeah. That regard. So that being said, is that you spent the money. You didn't have to spend the money. They spent it for you to get your medicals. I can't remember exact number, but I'm pretty sure the medicals are $700 to $900, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, and so this has to do with the CAT scan and
your vision check,
your vision check,
your AIDS check, everything.
All this stuff. So
done down here in San Pedro.
All done down here in San Pedro, right? And
the first time something's been convenient.
In the shittiest little office, you're like, is this is like 1970s.
I remember when I had to get my amateur book. I had to meet the local LBC guy at a gym to go get my book because we were trying to get it before.
Did you meet with Joe Sanders or?
No. It was a white guy.
The guy that looks like Clint Eastwood.
Yes, that guy.
Oh man, hold on.
I haven't seen him in years.
Oh God, it's gonna get.
He's always pissed off.
Dick.
He's never happy.
His first name is Dick.
Okay.
That's
him. That's the guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He lives in Huntington Beach.
That's right. I had to go meet him in Westminster boxing gym.
Okay.
And whatever, it was his whole year. So that's only to say this side little story is only to say everything in boxing has been kind of like inconvenient, like meet people.
Everything in boxing is inconvenient.
The first time I had something convenient was, Garrity, you're gonna have to do your medicals in San Pedro.
Right.
Oh, San Pedro?
You're like, thank you.
Great.
You're like, heaven
5
sent.
minutes. That office is 5 minutes away from me. I can finally.
You mean to tell me I only have to be in my car for 5 minutes?
You're giving me something convenient to do?
Yeah. I can't. So when I was working with Jesse Reed, I was in Orange County, so I was traveling to Burbank every day.
Oh my gosh.
And so you can imagine just being on that in the car in traffic, and then you'd get there, and it's boxing, so it's like, hey, we got sparring for our guy at 11, and we got sparring at 1, and then it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
Right, because either, and this is something just to be honest, and typically if you're dealing with Latino fighters, Mexican fighters are much more punctual. They're gonna be there on time. We're dealing with black fighters. It's like you said, everybody's going to be there at 11 and it's 1:30, and then it really doesn't get going until about 2:30, 2:15.
Well, that's the thing. No one's trying to be. No one's trying to be the first one there.
No one wants to. Yeah.
Am I going to try to be there first and not waiting on you?
You start to learn better too.
Yeah.
Like.
But then we're in a prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, you're in a prisoner.
So I need to show up a half hour later because that's where it's going to happen, and then.
So, but back to the money thing is you got fighters out there that are selling tickets to be on shows. They're given a little incentive. For the most part, there isn't a lot of money in a fighter that's debuting or even has a couple fights at all, unless he's flesh. And what do I mean by him being flesh? Unless he's sort of there. Oftentimes we're not talking about this in boxing, and this is happening. And for the general public that doesn't know, that the opponents sometimes, and the opponents being the B side, sometimes are, and oftentimes, not sometimes, oftentimes are being paid better than the A side. Yeah. And
because think about this, like, do you imagine? Think about the.
You're not going to get this on Brock and Ock, by the way.
Yeah,
you're not going to get it.
So like,
just to keep it real,
Mike Tyson on his first 20 victories was on a rampage. He was fighting every month. There was even like a couple of fights within the span of like 3 weeks or something. Yeah. Think about how fast that price point was going up for the B side. Yeah. To be like, oh, so I'm gonna have to fight a guy who's first of all not known yet. Yeah. Because he's so young. I'm gonna have to fight on a B side against a guy who has been knocking everybody out. Yeah. That's 20 grand, sir.
20 grand. You know what I mean? So you got recently, someone hit you up.
Yeah, man. It's like
to
I got offered. I mean, it wasn't straight from the matchmaker, but what happens is sometimes a matchmaker will send a bounty out in a sense, and if things didn't work out with the guy he's trying to find, he'll ask that guy to spread the word out, and it came eventually to me. And he's gonna laugh when
I should do this, but it's important.
But I got offered $6,000 to fight at middleweight, which I haven't fought in 2, maybe 3 years. Yeah, I've been out of the gym for a while. I'm trying to do my own business.
You debuted at 135 or
140?
140. So you have no business at middleweight at 160.
No business there. But except for the fact that I weigh that now, but I don't belong fighting in the ring right now.
Someone offered you $6,000 to go out there and take the fight, which is basically to be the body.
To go be a body and
to get clipped.
And I may have a mullet, but I'm not white trash. I do not need the $6,000.
Yeah.
I do not need the $6,000 as bad as. Let's talk about the sad reality. The sad reality of boxing is that we're putting people in a situation where they need to take the money.
Yeah, no.
If it means.
I'll speak on this with the guy that I work with, which is Malcolm McAllister. Malcolm McAllister had a really good career in the beginning. I think he went 9-0. He was being represented more or less by Sam Watson, who was representing Al Heyman. Mm-hmm. He had fought a couple times on Fox Sports, and he was getting good traction in his career. He unfortunately had an injury, and he had just had a brand new baby. He was getting paid okay money to get to 9-0, but not that good of money. I know this because I have a friendship with him. And he just got injured, and he was offered a good amount of money to fight at Barclays in Brooklyn against Cordell Booker. By the way, it was an incredible fight. It was an incredible fight. It was one of these fights that would have been fight of the year, and I really wish it was on TV so people could see it. But knowing that Malcolm had an injury, Malcolm had a serious injury that was from something that happened and that was really, really terrible, right? Had to go take the fight because the amount of money that was involved, and fought the fight as a southpaw. Now, I've been watching Malcolm. The first time I met Malcolm was in the 2012 Olympic trials in Colorado. But he had to take the fight because the money was there because he has to provide for his family. In that way, that when we're talking about boxing and what it is, and it's specifically where the men and women that are involved in the sport come from, that they come from lower socioeconomic stratas, that they're coming from the hood, that they're coming from barrios, that they're coming from third world countries and so forth. Knowing that they're having to say yes to get money, and knowing that the sport is out there. And, I was going to say earlier, I didn't want to be in poor taste, and I won't do it, but on my phone, from a pretty well-known matchmaker, they send out these blanket texts to everybody. And if you're looking at the language of the text, it's often like, hey, do you have anybody that, sort of jokingly, do you have anybody for my guy that's 9-0? We're looking for someone that, has the look. Yeah. Has the look meaning that they're physically sort of fit.
Yeah.
But we don't want too hard of a look. We're looking for someone that, it basically saying we're looking for someone that will end up being the highlight reel of a knockout.
I have a question really quick about the Malcolm McAllister story. Yeah. When he took this fight on the injury, did the matchmaker who approached him for that high price point, did he know that he had recently had a minor injury? Because that's part of the sketchiness.
Malcolm is a pretty private guy.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that, but it's also that when you're dealing with...
It wasn't like you went headhunting for a guy to be a good look?
Not at all. No, okay. Not at all. I'm not going to say that. And by the way, in shape, Malcolm, Cordell and Malcolm Cordell had stopped by Jackrabbits, I think about 6 weeks ago. And, they have a good relationship. They're going to have a good...
Cordell's matchmaker?
No, Cordell Booker's the guy that he fought from.
Oh, sorry.
Who's a good fighter. Listen, even if Malcolm was healthy... And seeing Cordell as a fighter, now those two were going to get down regardless. You're talking about two guys that know how to fight. I know, I was with Malcolm the night of the fight, not in the corner, but afterwards, Malcolm had said to me, Cordell came over to him and said, man, you can fight. You can fight. There's a mutual...
Still made for a good match.
Yeah, so it was going to be a good match regardless. But if we're talking about just being in a situation, fighters, when you turn pro and you're a baseball player, you turn pro and you're a football player, or you turn pro and soccer player and so on, basketball, etc. There's oftentimes money that gets exchanged immediately that's going to change your life because you became a professional player in the sport that you're coming from. Unless you're really one of these guys, there's not, Oscar De La Hoya probably comes to mind, but even then we're only talking, this doesn't change your life money when you're debuting.
Yeah.
This is someone that's willing to invest in you maybe 45 to 200 grand.
And let's be honest, I bet you even a Teofimo Lopez,
yeah,
who is gonna do huge things.
Oh yeah,
I bet you the money he's seen is in no means
no
anything to change even in for a young man to change your life in any way. And that's probably good that that the sport doesn't oversupply the top young guns with too much cash, because then they lose the incentive.
Frankie Gomez, right? You mentioned Frankie Gomez. I think, listen, Frankie Gomez is as a LA prospect. Man, this is a guy that we all thought could do things. He sort of epitomizes this idea of a Los Angeles fighter, what I think of as a Los Angeles fighter, being that just like a real rider, just like, at the end of the day, when you're talking about letting your hands go and having a certain style, which is aggressive and forward and so forth. This is a guy that we thought could do big things. It's not just me that thought he could do big things. Freddie Roach thought that he would do big things, and everybody involved in boxing thought that he would do big things. We know that he was given a bonus, whether it's hearsay or public record. We know that he had caught a case, right? That he had taken the money and that he'd got caught up in a drug case after he'd gotten a substantial amount.
So you're saying that even if you're a professional boxer, you still need to do extracurricular activities to make money?
No, I'm just being real about where people come from. Listen, anybody that is hopping into that ring
Right.
And they decide this isn't. This is everyone, even yourself included. You're off, right? And the joke about you being off is that you decided that, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get underneath these lights and I'm gonna get punched in the head, and I'm gonna do this for money, or I'm gonna do this for a feeling. I'm going to do this for pride. Yeah. I'm going to do this because I love it. Listen, that's not like, this is not. There's plenty of people.
It's not normal.
When case in point, NBA players or even football players. This is fact. All-American Heavyweights, which was a program that was going on in Carson at the time, that had taken a bunch of college football players, and I can't remember the guy that was the money behind it.
Yeah, with Michael King, I think.
Michael King, who
he passed away.
He had passed away, but had success in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
But
he had started to get a little bit into boxing, and this was his big program.
Right. So most people would think, if you're taking a football player that's doing something that seems crazy to me, which is returning a kick return and sprinting at each other, as fast as they can, are going to be able to transfer over into boxing and immediately do okay because they're okay with this idea of the physical contact, right? But it's just not true. I was there at All-American Heavyweights, not a lot, but they're enough to see that now Dominique Brazil came out of All-American Heavyweights.
So Charles Martin
as well, it came out of All-American Heavyweights.
A couple of guys.
And I want to say Joe Hanks did too, which although I don't know if he was part of it, but he definitely was there. When you're talking about, they had 30 or 40 guys in there that were all either D1 or D2
shotgun approach
football players.
You put out a bunch of potential, and maybe one of them will strike.
But the assumption is that if you got guys that are playing football,
if you have that kind of money, you can do that.
If you got that kind of money,
it's fun. 30 guys, and maybe 2 of them will come.
They're going to be in. But the assumption is if you have guys that are playing football, that they're going to be able to go in there and be comfortable with getting punched in the face. Let me tell you, this is not true. I'm not going to say the guy's name. I love the guy as a person, and but it was a fighter that they had that was 6'9". He used to go over the top ropes. An athlete. You should see this guy. He could do all these things on the pull-up bar. He was pretty agile, very quick. Everything that you would, explosive. Man, the guy could hit a bag. Couldn't fight himself out of a wet paper bag. He did end up debuting, and I think he won, and then he took another fight and got clipped, and he never boxed again. That's not to judge him anything. I know that he fought underneath those lights, and I give him that credit for that. But I think a lot of general fans out there thinking that, football players and so forth are cut from the same sort of cloth that a boxer is. Yeah, it's just not true.
It's not true.
So
I will say it takes something special to be able to fight. To be able to want to fight.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to say, and you gave me props for wanting to get into the ring, doesn't mean just because a football player doesn't necessarily have it to be a fighter, because he doesn't have that off, whatever.
Yeah, you're off. Yeah.
But it'll go the other way too, because when I was playing football, I was playing football and boxing at the time, way more comfortable sparring in the ring, getting punched in the chin.
Then you were taking.
Then when I was getting ready to tackle somebody.
Yeah. So
and I'm gonna give props to there's probably more. In America there's more kids that play high school football than kids that have gotten in the ring.
I think
so. We're not here to say that football players are worse compared to boxers. But
I just think that
there's something different. There's something different there.
There's something different.
It's weird that I feel more comfortable before a punch than a tackle.
Open it up with. I think it's absolutely crazy that these guys are sprinting. Guys with 4.40s are sprinting full speed at you.
Yeah, it's nuts.
As another guy on the other side with a 4.5 or 4.6 is sprinting at you. But I'm also saying that it's absolutely nuts that the boxing or mixed martial arts, that the whole end goal is to knock you out. It is physical damage. The end goal is just to hurt the man. It's not an end zone. It's not a 3-point shot. It's not a 2-point shot. It's not a home run. No, this is completely different. This is to knock another man unconscious. And that anybody that ends up fighting, whether they be in the octagon or whether it's in the ring, that they are potentially taking their life in their own hands.
I used to say to people when I was selling tickets for my second fight, was like, people were like, $70 for a fight? And I used to say, okay, so you're going to get like, there's like 6 fights in this card.
Yeah.
You know? So let's break it down. There's 2 fighters in every, there's 2 fighters in each bout, right? How much of that money do you think is going to me? And do you think, you're not going to be entertained by, actually, 14, I think there was like 7 fights. 14 dudes are putting their lives on the line for your entertainment, and you're complaining about the $70. I'm not even taking home 5 of that, dude.
It reminds me of
chill out.
reminds me of Are You Not Entertained?
Yeah. I was trying to do one of those back. Yeah.
Gladiator, right?
Yeah. But that's actually interesting. It's like at the end of the day, like it's age old, but the thing that becomes most entertaining and the thing that makes money is this end goal of
this is
someone being distracted.
Yeah, it's funny too. But the assumption is that money is being made to try to get back in the theme that we're talking about. But it's also to kind of what you're saying right now too, which is that I'm sure that you've been in a room and been watching fights with somebody, and you'll hear someone say something that just makes me cringe, which is, "Why doesn't he punch back?" And it's like, because he just got hit to the body and he literally can't feel his feet. And that, this for the most people that have nothing to do with the sport, or just because they've been in a little...
But why are they hugging? Why is he clinching?
Yeah,
why is he grabbing him?
Hugging? Yeah.
If he wants to win, he should just throw more punches.
Yeah, he's just throw more punches. It's the one thing that I wish that boxing had was maybe stricter criteria on who they're letting turn pro.
But here's the thing. Here's why you can't. Yeah. Because you eventually run out of guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why does the so it's not even like, let's say boxing is a zero-sum game, right? Mm-hmm. For every win there's a loser. Every winner there's a loser. If we got a guy, if we have a stable of guys that have are 10-0, and we want to build each one of these, let's say 3 guys, we want to build them each to 30-0 and get them title shots.
Yeah.
They're not going to be facing other
guys. And they shouldn't either.
And eventually, you need more losers to feed the system.
It's also that there's an art to taking. I say there's an art to taking out the trash, and it sounds horrible, but I was talking to a young guy that is definitely, he's number 2 in the nation as an amateur. He's still young. He's 15. He's growing up in the sport. And he asked me, when would he goes, what do you think I'd be fighting at? And I said, well, we'll try to get you down to 147 or 154. He's still growing. The kid's 6'1" and he's 15, right? Hopefully he becomes 6'5" or 6'6". Everybody wants a heavyweight. Everybody wants a big, right? But I said, hey, listen, he goes, well, when I'm looking at these guys' bodies, guys that are fighting at 160 or 168, it's like they're so big, they're so, they have so many muscles, they're so developed. I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. You're not going to see these kind of guys probably until 3 or 5 years into the fight game. Yeah. In the beginning, you'll be facing guys, our opponents, that I know that have losing...
Guys that we picked up from Home Depot.
At Home Depot.
Have a sunburn.
Still
have sunburn from the work week.
Losing records and so forth. Yeah. But I also said, I've been to the fights in Mexico, and I do want to say this about and I don't say this because I have a grandmother from Mexico, but that when the fights in Tijuana, Mexican people have a fighting spirit in them, and even when you're going down there and you've brought, which I brought a couple fighters down to Mexico to get matches, that they're still in a fight, but it's also very difficult to. There is an art of taking out the trash, and sometimes it can be awkward because when you're facing somebody that isn't really a polished skill set, the rhythm is different when you're boxing that person. That they're not coming in there and they're in there doing weird things and skipping.
So I want to take a kind of a contrarian approach here, in that there are a few instances where we're basically going on a theme here, talking about how you can't make money in boxing. Yeah. You almost can't. It's the haves and have-nots, and
it's smaller than 1/3 of that 1%.
Yeah. But there is a special category of guys who can actually make more money being the B side.
Yeah.
If you're a good journeyman, you might have had a good career because you were a good fighter. You got yourself up to the prestige to be the
gatekeeper.
Be the gatekeeper.
Right.
And you deserve the $1 million purse against a guy who's maybe getting $10 million because it's he's the bigger star. A gatekeeper can actually make more money having been the loser than had he been a winner. Had he been an A side guy only and burned out earlier.
This is someone that I admire. I think he's a hell of a fighter. I think that he did incredible things in his days. I was a fan of his. I was rooting for him when he fought Swift Hurd. Gerald Swift. No, I'm talking about Austin Trout.
Yeah.
Austin Trout.
They're going to say Peterson, but I don't know. Yeah. He's another recent gatekeeper that comes to mind.
Lamont.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another great example. Also fan of Lamont Peterson.
Yeah.
And Austin Trout. These guys did great things. I mean, listen, Lamont I thought got robbed against Danny Garcia. Lamont's a hell of a fighter. Same thing with Austin Trout. Austin Trout gave Canelo a difficult time. Although I can't remember the fight specifically, but
a long time ago.
Yeah, but being said, Austin Trout is still making great money, essentially being in that gatekeeper position. Is he making as much money as he did as a champ? I'm not privy to those numbers, but I know that he's making a good living, being in the position as being if you can get past Austin now. That now maybe perhaps you should be in a position where you're a contender or you have a title shot against whoever is the champion at that specific time. It's not those kind of when you have someone that's a gatekeeper like that, they definitely earn that position.
Right. And no one's training to get to that spot. It's you get there by accident almost because a gatekeeper probably got there because he was a
you're a top 10 fighter.
Yeah.
You might have even had a title. I think Austin Trout had a title, right?
I don't remember. It would have been back then.
I feel bad for not knowing, but I'm pretty sure he had a title. And it's apologies to Austin Trout, like I said. I was a fan of his. I think he's a great fighter. But these guys were in a position. To be honest with you, we're going to be fully just real about Danny Garcia. And if Danny Garcia doesn't continue to put himself in a position where he's not refining his craft and trying to fix things that he wasn't doing well. He lost the fight to Maurice Herrera, contrary to the cards. Head right? He lost the fight to Lamont Peterson, contrary to the cards. He's had a couple of gift horses.
But guess what? This was during the Al Heyman bubble.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's almost like his dad is not like his dad's a meme-worthy character, but it's almost like his dad points it out in that famous line where he said, "Why would you fight?" I forget who they were saying. When you could make $1 million fighting a Rod Sulka.
Yeah. I remember him saying
it's that same,
but which I can understand.
There was inflated
the money side of things, but it's also to say that if Danny Garcia doesn't know, he has a fight coming up too, right?
Yeah, he's fighting Adrian Granados. On the 20th. Yeah,
it's a good look. Adrian
Granados
comes to fight. Adrian Granados is not coming to lay down.
No.
He could, if Danny sleeps on him, Danny could easily see himself getting kicked to position as a gatekeeper. Danny to me is not a gatekeeper right now. Danny to me is still a contender, right?
Yeah.
But these things can happen. If Danny does get slided over to a position where he ends up being a gatekeeper, he's going to continue to make money because he still has this great name behind him.
He's still a great fighter too.
He's still great. Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's just that there comes to the point of how many champions can get
Danny Garcia in a high guard, he dares people to punch, when his hands are up like this, he dares you to punch at him.
I want to let the listeners know that Danny Garcia, if you're not as much of a boxing fan, this is Danny Garcia, Philadelphia guy.
Yeah, from Philly.
Swift.
North Philly. Right.
Puerto Rican guy. This is not Mikey Garcia, who we talked about a bunch a couple weeks back. Mikey Garcia is a California guy, Mexican guy. They're different guys. Just so you know, we're not talking about the same guys we talked about. But yeah, Danny Garcia has a fight coming up with Adrian Granados. And
you can see how guys get themselves. And Danny, Danny is obviously in a great position. He's made great money. But you can see where people, when their careers start to, and he's not here, so just to be, but sooner or later, if Danny doesn't retire, probably in a couple of years, his career is going to start to dwindle down a little bit, right?
Danny had a great interview response recently, and because he's like such a cool guy. Like his dad's like the fiery one. His dad's the clickbait reel. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like Danny is a lot more of a mellow guy. But there was a guy kind of trying to bait him a little bit. It was one of these like YouTube channels that does,
the interviews on
the interviews fighters on the spot, and somebody like next to the guy filming was just saying like, so I actually see that you get a lot more trash talk on Instagram than other guys in your kind of, and Danny was just like, oh yeah, he was laughing it off. He goes, oh yeah, that's right, I do get a lot more, but that's only because they're using free Wi-Fi, so that's all they can do. I don't know. They're hauling from the cheap seats. They're on free Wi-Fi. Of course, they're going to talk shit from over there. Yeah.
The thing about Danny Garcia too is that Danny is a winner. I mean, he's a guy that figured out that I've heard rumors that Danny did everything really, really, really good, and not everything great. But think about that. You have some guys that maybe have a great jab. Larry Holmes comes to mind, right? Or a great lead hand. You have some guys that might have just a great power shot, but that he did everything so good that he got himself in a position where he was a world champion and has had so much success. The reason, and probably will continue to have success. It's just how is he going to? Is he recognizing that if he doesn't continue to dedicate himself to his craft and to become even more diligent and more disciplined, could he easily get in a position that looks like Austin Trout's, where he's a gatekeeper? But just talking about money.
What about Ryan Garcia?
About Ryan Garcia
and Instagram and the new way.
Oh yeah,
it's like a new
like
a whole
new
models. Yeah. So Ryan Garcia, just we know
different Garcia. All right, so this is your third Garcia now.
This is boxing, so there's gonna be a lot of Garcias, right?
Let's bring up a Lopez, dude. We're talking about different Garcias.
You should throw a Lopez in there. You're talking about Ryan Garcia, so yeah, there's a new model out there, which is to be honest, Ryan Garcia was a good amateur. Joe Zanders has reminded us that he never had a national title, right? Or he had one, maybe as a junior.
I don't know. I don't remember.
But that he didn't have the accolades of, say, like a Devin Haney did, or Ashton Silva. These guys have these national titles.
His moment.
Yeah. So, but when you're looking at Ryan didn't have the accomplishments as an amateur. But what Ryan did have was he had those looks, and people seem to forget that he gained traction off of making viral, Vine and Instagram sort of, videos, and that.
I think he did have a huge amateur record, though. I would not say.
Joe told us that Joe
said maybe he didn't have a national title. Is that what he said?
Joe said he never had a national title. Yeah.
But I think he had a high level.
I know, but if we're talking about the amateurs that I can think of by name. And this is another thing that I want to tell people out there is that there's
according to Golden Boy, his amateur record was 215 and 15.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big record.
So let me click in again.
Sure.
And this is another little dirty little secret, right?
I love him. Keep him coming.
Do I think that he was 215 and 15? Possibly, for sure. I mean, he was a good kid, and he was out here fighting in all these local shows. No, everybody knows in the local boxing club out here, you can committee. I'm sorry. You can get that many fights, especially if you're doing it from a young age. But I've also been in a situation where somebody has said, "Hey, what's the kid's amateur career?" And I remember being ready to be honest, and dealing with a pretty big promotional company. I'm not going to say who it is. And them saying, "Oh no, just put that he was 99 and 12." So I'm not saying that that's Ryan Garcia's case. I'm not saying.
And then to answer your question about the national, 2014 2014 USC Junior National silver medalist at the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno.
Yeah.
2015 he was a quarterfinalist for the same thing. And then in 2016, he was a gold medalist at the same thing.
So he's got one national title, it seems like, in 2016. So listen, any kid that wins a national title, especially at these shows, you've been in the nationals before?
No.
Yeah. No? God. Okay.
Come on, man.
The great thing about the nationals is, they're being streamed all the time, so that's the best thing. If you're a fan of boxing You want to see some of these young guns that are coming up. They're doing
a lot. Brian Taylor, I believe is his name, the communications director at USA Boxing. Yeah. He's doing a great job. And the rest of USA Boxing really trying to take it up to the next level.
Lorenzo Simpson Truck, you know who this kid is?
No.
He's got, but man, Lorenzo Simpson Truck, he's from I don't want to think he's from Baltimore, but he's from out that same direction. But man, this kid was sleeping people in the amateurs. But same thing, you can watch these kids coming up if you're a fan of boxing, and you can see, but one thing that I hear a lot of, and it drives me crazy, is especially you see this on the internet, you see it in YouTube comments, you see it on Instagram, which is that people don't think there's a correlation between, this kid has an amateur style or yada, 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 that like there isn't a correlation between a really good amateur and a really good professional. To say, well, that's an amateur style. It doesn't matter.
No, yeah.
It's like, no.
If I had two options tomorrow to fight, and I had to fight a 3-0 guy who is a look I'm familiar with, or a 1-0 guy,
right?
But I happen to know that he has a huge amateur background.
You're taking the 3-0.
And he's from the East Coast.
Yeah.
And he's black.
Yeah. You're taking the 3-0.
And he has a style that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, a cutesy style.
I'm taking the 4-0 Mexican on the other side because that's something I'm familiar with.
So
the amateur, don't ever look.
Yeah, don't over that pedigree. We're talking about pedigree, right? So if you're dealing with
a different set of skills,
Danny Garcia
amateur style to be successful
national titles
that you would have, yes.
Right? And so I'll hear a sentiment out there where people say, well, it's amateurs, they have an amateur style. Amateurs don't matter. For a few people out there, amateurs didn't matter because they were just great fighters. But
Labrado Andrade is one of my favorites.
Yeah, Labrado.
I think he had like 10 amateur losses. Yeah. Maybe no wins. Over like 10. He told me this.
Yeah.
As a professional, figured out. I think he was 33-3, had a couple knocks on the door when it came to world title. He actually did beat Lucian Bute. That was a very controversial fight. Yeah. It's on YouTube for anyone.
I can think of one, just so you guys know to the general boxing public out there, I can think of one guy in history, and you're more than welcome to engage in the comments.
Yeah, please do.
Please do. But I can think of one guy, Ola Afolobi. You don't know Ola? So Ola's a cruiserweight. He was from London, from the UK. He could fight. I mean, obviously he could fight. I think he was by way of Nigeria, but he used to be a wild card all the time. He's the only guy I know that didn't have an amateur career that became a champion of the world. One guy.
There's a couple.
I'm sure there's others.
I mean, no amateur, absolutely no.
And
he never fought a smoker?
Never fought a smoker. First fight was as a professional. Ola Afolobi. So
it happens. Going back to one of the original points of this episode is that it does happen. There are plenty of guys who don't ever have an amateur career in their first fights. Happens in Mexico all the time.
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
But for one that to become a world champion, that's probably a smaller batch of people.
That pedigree does matter, and that especially when you're looking at how money's getting dispersed. I guarantee Danny Garcia had some money thrown at him when he's debuting because he had national titles. We know Devin Haney.
And it was Al Heyman, so there was
Devin Haney had a lot of national
endless
titles.
Amounts of money. I don't know where it's going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that they were willing to invest in fighters that they knew they could fight. Malcolm McAllister had a national title. I mean, Malcolm. Here we go again.
Are you making money?
Well, if you're making $10,000 on your third or fourth fight,
that's money.
That's money.
Yeah.
Right. If you're, and I know.
If you're selling tickets at your 20th fight,
he wasn't selling tickets. Malcolm didn't have to. Malcolm didn't have to sell tickets because he was with good people. He had money behind him, and they're paying for the slot. That's another thing that I think that.
Which is another thing of the question of this episode: can you make money in boxing?
Yeah.
Let's talk about being a manager. Sometimes being a manager, it's like being an angel investor in a young company.
Yeah.
Where you're fronting all that money to get their career started, and as the manager, you may never see $1 of return in that investment you just made in that fighter because you're paying for all this training. You're actually supplying his purse. Right. Oftentimes. Yeah. You may have to pay the promoters to get a look. It all depends. This all depends, and I'm not speaking on any hard, fast rule book, but oftentimes the promoter, because there's this weird position of leverage that exists, the promoter will say, all right, well, actually the purse of the guy we flew in from Mexico is $900, and you're paying that too.
And the flight.
And the flight.
And
So
the
sometimes
hotel.
the manager.
And the trainer has to come with them too. And there's a cut man.
So as a manager, do you ever make money? Sometimes no. And sometimes you only make money on that guy's second title defense.
Well, listen.
Because he wins the world championship, you finally have a cash cow.
Yeah.
And you're gonna you won't see your return until it's like you won't see your. It's like being an investor. Telling you don't see your return until the company goes public. Yeah. If your guy makes it to 2 title defenses, finally you're gonna get a return on that money because you spent so much building his career up.
I'm gonna piss a lot of people off right now.
Yeah, go for it.
What I'm about to say. For example, if you're fighting out of Orange County, California, right, which a lot of people have, Santa Ana comes to mind. The majority of managers that are out there operating are flesh peddlers. And what do I mean by flesh peddlers? They are making money.
Exactly.
They are making money.
Yeah.
Because they might have 6 or 8 opponents going a month, and off that 6 or 8 opponents, maybe they're getting $500 kickback, or they're getting $600 kickback, or let alone if they got the guy that's pretty developed and they're getting more of a kickback.
They're operating a different business model.
They're on a different business model. I don't want to call out Orange County like that. There's definitely Orange County fighters out there that are great fighters. I mean, Rios comes to mind. Ronnie Rios comes to mind. Just, off the rip. But and obviously there's a rich history.
And also
Westminster Boxing Club.
Yeah, I was gonna say Westminster Boxing Gym and Santa Ana. When we're talking about Orange County, I can only think of a few places in Orange County that they have fighters. Let's think of like Santa Ana, Garden Grove, Westminster, and that's it. Because the rest of Orange County is like not a boxing culture.
Anaheim probably has some.
Anaheim too.
Anaheim actually has a good gym out there. I've been by it a couple times.
But we're not talking about Newport Harbor.
I'm gonna say I just
right? That's more your hood,
I think it's called Real MMA or something, or boxing. But Clemente Medina is in there right now.
Oh really?
In Anaheim, he's dealing with a lot of fighters.
Oh, is that Grandpa's gym? Is that what that is?
Grandpa's is another one that I know is a real gym. But there's been gyms out there. I'm not going to name them by names, but this is by no affiliation to TKO Boxing, Grandpa's, or Real. These guys are bringing fighters to win. But there's been other gyms out there that I know that are kind of on the flesh peddler side. Listen, boxing is a crazy world too, because you could be a flesh peddler and not know, because your bubble's so small that you have your fighter that's only sparring against other people in your area, and he's a big bad wolf.
What's that saying about like if you don't know who the biggest fool at the table, the poker table is, it's you or something like that. Like if you don't know who. Sometimes you don't know. In fact, I was in a situation where I thought that I was getting. Whatever. I got knocked out in my second fight. So in my first fight, you were there. You saw that. And in my second fight, I thought that I thought the matchmaker was bringing me an opponent, but I think I was actually that opponent to that kid. Who knows?
Well, you will remember what dressing room were you in? Were you A side or B side dressing room?
This was kind of a mixed show because it was there was guys in my hard to say, but it could have been the B-sider. That's a good point. Like going to that earlier topic.
Oh, I've been in the A-side dressing room and I've been in the B-side dressing room.
But there was A-siders in our
there was
A-siders in our dressing room and there was B-siders in our dressing room. Not to shift any blame. I should have been able to beat that guy. He wasn't something that. I wasn't completely thrown to the wolves,
but I love that. That's the fighter in you that says that. So,
but there were some. It was interesting. There were some things that changed, and I don't even know the matchmaker. I was in a weird situation, but there were some things that changed over time. Yeah. I was told you got a guy who's an amateur, 0-2 as an amateur, and he's like 30 years old from Oxnard. I was thinking to myself, Oxnard, he's probably going to be a bad motherfucker. Like, it doesn't matter how old he is. Oxnard, they come to fight.
Oxnard's the fighting city.
And I get there at the weigh-in. And I wasn't told he was a southpaw until the very last second.
Yeah, it seems like you're the B-side.
but I followed this guy a little bit, and he didn't have much after that. So he might have been one and done, in a sense. But as far as it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No excuses. I should have been able to figure it out, and I didn't.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good to find that stuff out early.
Most people, so the general boxing public out there that don't know, these shows are oftentimes very loaded. And it as you start to get more and more competitive fights, it doesn't happen as much. But typically, let's say that hypothetically you got 15 or 18 bouts up for the night, and it can be that many bouts are going on for the night. We start at 4:30 in the afternoon, up until you get to the main event around 9. The early part of the shows, probably up until about 14, are pretty much lopsided matches. I mean, that's being honest. So it's when we're looking at what boxing is, it's also that, like you said, if you're making an investment, it takes a lot to bring up a fighter to get them in that position. I've been in the B side for a show that was on TV. It was on NBC. And
but at that stage, it's not necessarily like you're brought here to lose. He might have just been the underdog.
No, but I will say this: that what the things that were going on in the locker room, specifically with the New York State Athletic Commission, and that we had gloves that had been pre-approved. They were Rival gloves. We all know who Rival is. Russ Abner, the owner of Rival, was there. Joe Goosen was there. These are names in boxing. Oh. And that the commission was telling the fighter that I was with that he couldn't go out there with the gloves. Me being very green to the situation, which I was at the time, and being there with Jesse Reed and having Joe Goosen in there, had it just been me, I wouldn't have known how to handle the situation. Because in my mind, this idea that the commission would go on there and start messing with the B side, perhaps because of something that's just happening in boxing, which I think, listen, we see lopsided decisions all the damn time.
We saw that happen in Las Vegas when Chino Maidana fought for their first fight.
With Maidana.
Things happen even at the higher levels. That when it comes to last minute, you can't use that pair of gloves because
people with the horsehair MX Everlast gloves. It's something that I wish that I would see in the sport is that the gloves should be turned into the commission 7 days before. Right? It'd be great. They get the gloves before. And then the gloves should be put on by the commission and they should be taped by the commission. They should never be given to us as trainers. I will tell you, I've dealt with horsehair gloves and I've manipulated the shit out of them. And anybody that wants to pretend that they don't do this is really out of their mind. You grab the glove, you start digging into it, you start tying them both together, you're sitting on them, you're stepping on them.
Leaning against the wall.
Yeah, you're packing them. You're definitely, listen, especially with the horsehair gloves, there's different gloves. This is a completely different conversation. But there's gloves that are made out of foam composite, and there's gloves that are made out of horsehair. All the old school gloves were made out of horsehair. It's very much easier to get inside of that padding and start pushing it to the side to get to the knuckle.
And they're known as the puncher's glove.
So
examples would be Cleto Reyes would be a brand that's the puncher's glove.
Yeah.
And then Everlast came out with their
You could see too.
MX.
You can look at these gloves too. You could see if you just ever get curious if you're looking at a fight, you can see the horsehair gloves. They have almost like indentations to them.
Yep.
Versus like a foam composite, like a winning glove, which looks like just a brand new glove.
Winnings were made to protect. Cletos were made to knock people out.
To knock people out. Same thing with the Everlast MX gloves.
Yeah.
So whatever decision that Floyd made, people know in boxing, most trainers aren't going to go out and say, hey, but if you wanted to, me being a guy that's had a hand on the glove, that I've known, that I've taken it and this isn't cheating, by the way, because everybody does it. This is anybody that wants to say everybody gets their hands on those gloves and they start ripping into them. I was taught by
not ripping. You're just rubbing.
Yeah, but you start manipulating it like if it was dough.
You're making your own knuckles feel good.
Exactly. But I'm talking about.
I want to get a good grip of it.
The trainers do.
Because when you get a brand new pair of gloves, I don't know if this happened to you, but if you get a brand new pair of gloves and you realize
you can't
that you're not fisting,
you're
not crunching well enough, and then when you're hitting the heavy bag, because you hadn't been a tight enough grip, you'll notice at the end of your session, your wrist is starting to feel it. Well, that comes from the fact that you weren't able to clench as much. So, but if a fighter's getting a good grip on his glove, he's getting a good grip on his glove. There's nothing wrong with that.
As long
as you're not slicing the thing and taking out the horsehair.
Yeah. Which people are being caught, right?
That's happened.
Panama.
I forgot that famous fight.
Jack, right? With so. Louis Resto and oh god, you can remember the offender, but you can't remember the victim. Louis Resto and Panama Jack were the guys that manipulated.
Sounds right.
And there's somebody else in LA that got caught manipulating the club. I won't go into that. The thing is that when you're that night as the B-side, it was clearly that the commission. Now you got Joe Goose in there, and you got Russ Abner, who both have had. I think Joe's had 17 world champions, and Russ has had world champions too. That basically check them. I'm not in a position where I know. I'm growing into kind of like the man that I am today, right? I'm glad had it been me, I wouldn't have known how to do it. But they're like, hey, I'll never forget it. Joe's looked at the commission, and I've been in the corner with Joe a couple times, and just basically said, well, we're not going out. And said to the fighter, don't worry about it. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, no, go tell him. And then basically threw the gloves that they had brought over for us to wear at them. Threw it at the commission. And then told them to get the fuck out of the B-side.
It's a great dressing room. Game of chicken, All right.
Yeah. All right. And we're up.
Refund all these tickets.
We're up on TV. Like they were the main event for a television show, right? And to know that I'm sitting there and that he was the B-side, and just to see that they're messing with him a little bit. We're about to be up. I mean, the guy's about to warm up on pads. I mean, he's got his gear on, everything. But so that these things are happening in shows. Like I said with the commission, I wish that the commission held the gloves so that the trainers couldn't get access to them. Also wish that the commissions...
I'm not sure that would necessarily get rid of fair play, though.
No, but I'm talking about, I doubt...
The price tag would just be higher.
Yeah, it was price tag.
Right.
But I also another thing I think...
get rid of...
there should be an assigned hand wrapper for all the shows.
That does both sides?
Yeah.
That's a good idea, and that's I think that's logistically possible to implement.
Yeah, it's just
at least for the same hand wrapper for each given fight.
Honestly,
like
pro shows and amateur shows.
We need to have let's say we have 3 hand wrappers.
Yeah.
Hand wrapper A is doing the first bout, both sides. Hand wrapper B can work on the second bout, while hand wrapper 3 can work on the third bout. And then A can go back to the fourth. Yeah. You need to stagger it a little bit.
The only reason
we want to at least have the same man doing both sides of the same ring. Right?
It's the same thing with the wraps, the hand wraps that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, which is that there's funny things that are going on with the hand wraps. Funny being that, and this is what I've noticed too, and this is just to be honest, you can be the A side locker room, and the commission isn't bothering you too much, right? You can be the B-side locker room, and the commission is standing right over you when a hand is getting wrapped. So, could this be my imagination? Sure. Have I been in enough dressing rooms to maybe come to this assessment? Probably not. Maybe I could just be honest with that. Yeah. But I'm talking about 30 or 40 pro shows, so that I still get a pretty good feeling. There's a different feeling in the B side than there is in the A side locker room. There's a different feeling the way that commissions are dealing with you across the country. And I've had another sort of incident with the B side in the Pacific Northwest too, where I thought that I was like, hey, this is so.
Yeah, let's not take all the charm away, because we still do love this sport.
We are lifting the veil.
Lift the veil a little bit.
Today.
But Trevor, how do you make money in boxing? How do I get rich in the sport of boxing? How do I get rich?
So I think the new model, if I had to, and I'm kind of involved, I'm involved obviously with the young kids in Long Beach. Yeah. The new model that's emerging is that you're going to have a social media presence. Look, my biggest concern with this is that when you're looking at champions in the past, that you have a culture that's resonating out of social media. So if we're talking about social media, whether or not these kids are going to have the drive to want to go out there and get basically the accomplishments, the attention, if they're already getting it from social media.
So if I make a Facebook post, I'm starting my weight loss journey today, and I get all the likes, and I feel good. I get the warm glow effect.
Right. Which
but
is
then,
probably.
But then, do I have a results video in 30 days?
Probably. I mean, but
no. So that's a hyper example of what you're saying is that you're worried.
Boxing is
gratification takes away a bit.
The gratification. Like a lot of young kids are getting they're getting attention. Not to throw. Listen.
Sounds like you're going after.
For some reason, I don't feel like pulling punches today. So the hell with it. Little Future, for example, who I mentioned on the show before. The kid has no national titles as far as I'm aware of. He doesn't have a big amateur career. He's got probably 100,000 followers. For a guy like me that's involved in amateur boxing and has kids I have kids in the gym that are number 2 in the nation, kids in the gym that are number 1 in the nation, kids in the gym that are number 7, number 5, and so on. No one's giving these kids attention because why? Because their father wasn't savvy enough to capture every moment of their young career and make viral videos and make little tidbits and put up inspirational quotes where you had a bunch of people get behind somebody because they wanted to.
Thanks a lot, Dad.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot, Dad. So if you're looking at someone like that, and I wish the kid the best of luck. For right now, I could never get behind a kid like that because what has the kid done?
So he might be more of a movie star than a.
Well, I'm not saying that, but boxing.
I don't know the kid.
Whether it be sprinting or it's boxing or it's basketball or it's baseball, it is what have you done? Especially if you're a young prospect, right? And I don't even prospect loosely, shouldn't even use that. But if you're a young amateur standout, and I know that you're making it to the semifinals, if you're making it to the semifinals of the nationals, I'm giving you your props. I know that you can fight. If you're winning the nationals, I know you can fight.
We're talking about amateurs. It doesn't matter in the pros.
It does matter. We're talking about the
Can you sell tickets?
No, we're talking about the new model. The truth is Little Future will probably get a signing bonus. And has yet to have any success in amateur boxing.
I'm gonna sign
him.
I told you I'm gonna be a promoter someday. I'm gonna sign this guy.
He has 100,000. He has 100,000 followers, right? And he probably is going to continue to have more. So he's going to continue to have more. But he's done nothing in the sport. And so for a guy that's involved,
not yet. Give him a chance. He's a kid.
He's been doing it since he's 9. He's 15.
I haven't done anything. Give me a chance.
But I'm saying if we got
fighting spirit, man, everyone's got a chance.
We have kids in the gym that have multiple national championships in the as juniors, right? Or we have a kid named Alex, right?
The good thing about this
number 2 in the nation,
yeah,
right there could be a national champion, right there on the cusp. I see this kid, and same thing with his brother Frederick, who's number 7. They're in there. Frederick, for example, is getting ready for the Junior Olympics in Compton. I've seen the kid losing 5 pounds in the last couple of days so he can make weight, right? And these kids are basically doing what they need to do, not capturing some sparring footage, not putting up a photo with Bernard Hopkins. They're going to go out there and they're going to actually fight, right? So, but what scares me about the new model is that you can have some of these kids out there that, frankly, they're not getting it done. They're not out there competing actively, but they have such heavy followers that they're going to put themselves in a position.
People will get exposed.
Sure,
you know
but you also can have a point with, like, here you have a kid that generally is sacrificed. Seeing these young men, for example, they've sacrificed 8 to 10 years, perhaps, or 12 years, if they decide to continue on with boxing and turn pro. These brothers that I see, and man, they've done everything. And then you have another kid that just had a dad that said, "Hey, by the way, I noticed that this gives me a lot of attention as a trainer. This gets my son a lot of attention as a fighter."
He's the trainer, the dad?
Yeah, the dad. And
so he's got a media team coming and doing.
Well, listen, I think that I watched
the business model right there.
I watched the kids. I watched the kid train. I've been on the kid's Instagram. The kid looks like a good little prospect, but he doesn't look like he can win the nationals. That's just keeping it 100, right? I haven't seen him against another kid that can fight. That's just being honest. I see him sparring with other kids that were showing clips. Look, the new model.
Say, Trevor, I would say don't worry about this kid. And also, I would also say the good thing about this, whether we're noticing a strange phenomenon that's happening where you can get all these accolades from the social media, but you're not necessarily have the record to back it up, whatever. Who cares? The point being that I don't think the limelight in the new era is a scarce resource. You know what I mean? I still think these other kids will have their exposure, their abilities. They're going to have... Sil has, 40,000 followers?
For me, with boxing, it's always been like that I say this all the time, that ring tells no lies.
Yeah.
Right? And
people will get exposed if they're not.
That the ring tells no lies. Listen, this kid could end up being very, very successful. It's not like the kid doesn't have ability. Like I said, I just haven't seen the kid compete on a level that he should be competing at in order to have all this attention.
And all I'm saying is he's 10, so give him a chance. Maybe
no, he's not. He's the same age as Ashton now.
Oh, he's what?
15.
15.
Okay, so you can see where
You should see me at 15, dude.
Right.
This kid's doing something.
I get that. Well, not necessarily, because we don't know how
maybe his dad's doing it.
We don't know how many bouts he has.
Oh, we don't even know that.
No.
Oh, so we never even seen him at a blue and gold tournament. Never even seen him at Desert Showdown?
He's out of Philly. So.
Oh, okay. No, I thought it was in California for some reason.
But no, he's out of Philadelphia. Right. But no, he's not. Listen, these kids that are actively fighting in these shows, we know that they're actively fighting. At this point, with someone like Ashton, it's hard to get him a bout.
Yeah.
I mean,
because you can't match him at a show. No one wants to fight him at a show.
Nobody wants to fight him at a show anymore, and so he can only get a bout at a bigger show, right?
That's why I want to go back to the Ryan Garcia element where we were saying like, I was saying no, I think he does have a really large record, in the 200 range.
Yeah.
When you get to that level, you can't find people that want to.
Well, you can't not a small show, no. But
so you're doing it all at tournaments, and in the tournaments,
you got 4 or 5 fights possibly.
Yeah, and also going back to your quote right now is that the ring tells no lies. So it's a free market in the ring.
No. I know the ring tells no lies, but listen, the general social media public who doesn't know shit about boxing, right? Which is 99.99% of the people that are checking into Instagram or whatever, YouTube
Absolutely.
or Facebook.
It's always been that way.
That they can just
they buy the pay-per-views.
They buy.
So we need them on board.
But I'm saying that they could buy the bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? They say, oh, this is that.
Absolutely.
This is yada yada yada. And for someone that's, like I said, for someone that sees a bunch of kids that are making sacrifices daily in the gym, that are all nationally ranked, that are fighting at the nationals, that are going to the regionals, that are out there fighting, drives me crazy, right?
I want to say this though, hype jobs are nothing new in boxing.
No.
Right?
No. Yeah.
I think now we just have the opportunity with social media to manufacture that hype ourselves or on a smaller scale, and that's kind of interesting, but. It's not necessarily anything that's new. We've seen promoters do it, and it used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but when you're doing it with 15-year-olds, like, okay, shit, right? And you're doing it, and that's a new model, right?
Yeah.
There's another kid that I'll talk about that I think is an incredible prospect. That was an amateur, has a high pedigree, but is sort of mimicking that model. But as far as capability of a fighter, I got to spend a lot of time with the kid because he's in and out of Jackrabbits, and I'm just in a mood today because I'm talking about everybody.
But I still need to find out how I'm going to make money in the boxing.
But listen, but I'm saying Tommy Wu is another kid that comes to mind. He's got a pretty big following. You probably don't know who he is. Yeah. He grew up with Ryan Garcia. He grew up with the Zavala brothers. These are guys that also had national titles. Yeah. He had a national title himself, but he's funneling himself into that direction of doing social media clips and viral clips because he realizes that that's going to make him bigger than actually going out there and fighting in the nationals. And that from just looking at it from a boxing point of view, and if you're looking, Mr. Wu, his dad, I've had conversations with him. If you're looking to develop a fighter and you want your fighter to potentially become a world champion one day, you do have this thing, which is social media. And we're talking about us full circle about making fighters the most money out there today, right? And they're definitely, it's sort of saddening to say, is that besides the traditional being the Olympian, being the standout amateur, being the guy where everybody knows can fight, that has a big following behind him, but also there's a couple names that come to my mind, but even with someone like Kovalev probably didn't get a signing bonus. Think about that.
Yeah. Most of those guys from the East probably didn't, because those are real guys.
Yeah.
Not to say that anyone who got a signing bonus isn't, but what I mean is they had long careers in the amateurs over on the other side of the block or whatever, and they come here and they have no names. They're a dime a dozen because we have too many Ukrainians at this point. It's like there's so many that it's hard to even keep up. But they keep on beating people at these smaller shows, and then they get, Kathy Duva's calling them and saying, hey, let's sign you, let's get you going, and then he's a world champion.
Yeah, I just the new model being that, how am I supposed to go to a fighter and take Ashton, for example, right, who has a lot of traction. And he deserves it. And he deserves it.
Because he's got the titles to back it up.
He's got 9 national titles and 2 international titles, right?
But he's also the right age at the right time to build his own thing, which is neat.
Imagine if he had, let's say that he had a team that was doing his marketing via social media. And they come to him and they say, Ashton, hey, sit down. We really think you should be making more viral videos of you doing basically parlor tricks. So can you take a medicine ball and juggle it doing uppercuts, which I've seen, Tommy Wood do.
It reminds me of Amir Khan taking that bottle.
Yeah.
He takes the bottle and he hits it like a speed bag and it flies.
Yeah. So this is boxing. It's like, hey, when social media is creeping into boxing, it's basically telling you that the best way that you can make money is by now creating a personality that it's sort of in defiance of what boxing historically has been, which is you can either fight or you can't fight. And do I think that in the future are we going to see guys that are pretty much looked after for the duration of their career because they make money, which we know has already existed in the past, but is that going to become more and more often commonplace in the sport? Unfortunately, I would say that my hunch would say yes, that as we see it progress to where it's going, specifically with these guys that are getting, these young kids that are coming up that are getting the attention that haven't even done anything on the level that they're at, that this is going to be more and more so. Now, he'll make money, but I feel bad for every young kid in, Maywood or East LA or, Garden City, Kansas, or
they
Miami.
can't shoot good footage on their Androids, bro.
Yeah, on their Androids. This is horrible.
I know.
So, yeah.
Come on.
That's the future. The future of making money in boxing is going to be no different than if there's a parallel to a young woman that wants to do makeup tutorials. I mean, yes, they're fighters, but you got to
be cute.
You got Ryan Garcia, for example.
But is that different than what's been happening forever?
No, I mean,
it's been there a little bit forever.
For sure, but I mean, Jerry Cooney wasn't handsome, right? I mean.
Oh, he was white. That was the thing.
Yeah,
so that's another issue.
Yeah, he could fight. But
there's always the great white hope.
What I mean by that, because a lot of people are not going to like what I said.
Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yeah. He fought for the cruiserweight. Yeah. He could fight though. What I mean by that is that. How do you go to a kid that's 11 or 12 or 13 and say, hey, look, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're doing. You don't have to win, son, or you don't have to win, daughter, right?
Let's just get you.
You just got to be like this little Russian girl that we've not seen. I don't even know her name.
Yeah.
I know that she has.
She goes viral. It's funny. It's funny when you see the same video, go viral on Facebook, and then 6 months later you see that same video come back into the circulation of being viral again.
Yeah.
The one where she's punching the tree or whatever.
So yeah, the one that punches the tree, the one that's trained by the dad. So hey, you don't have to be that. All you have to do, if you're my daughter, all you have to do is do 2 back handsprings, come out, and then throw 4 straight punches with a hook cross, roll across, and you're gonna get your viral clip. And you're going to get your social media platform. Or all you got to do, honey, or to your daughter, all you got to do, son, is we're going to blindfold you. We're going to walk you over to the speed bag, and you got to hit the speed bag blindfolded. And the general public is going to react to this. And all
that's
this,
what we got to do?
All this stuff that I see that's going on in social media, and I'm like, it's in defiance of what's really happening in a real gym that has a bunch of young killers that are all under the age of 15 or 16 that are out there sweating. I see these kids bleeding every day. I see these kids. I've seen a number 2 in the nation cry because he didn't feel that he did good enough. When I just seen him go 8 rounds at the Rock with all men between the ages of 23 and 28, and he won every round, and comes over to me and cries. Why Charles Martin's old trainer comes by and compliments me and says, "You're doing a hell of a job with him." And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this young man cry because he doesn't feel like he's doing enough. What am I supposed to say to him? Hey, never mind this. Never mind this boxing stuff. Your time is going to be better spent. Why don't you go down to Huntington Beach pier, and I'll hold pads for you on the pier, and we'll capture that, because that has a likelihood it'll go viral. And that's where I'm sort of bothered with the new models that are with boxing.
Yeah. So. Damn, that's crazy. So Huntington Beach is where we're headed next.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
There's this. We were talking about this the other day at the gym. I don't know if you've seen this, and is that these people are holding pads for each other in the middle of the street. Have you seen this? It's real. Like, it's cheesy. So it was being started. It was obviously being started by the Rumble gyms and the Shadow Box gyms, these boutique boxing gyms coming out of New York, where they're like, yeah, right, we're left. So, but
I got my whole bunch.
yeah. So
we're the fools because we're not making money there.
No, and it's
shame on us.
Shame on us, but it's also
we had the opportunity to be whatever trainers, and we're not.
You would think that, man, and I hope people watch the show. You would think that boxing couldn't get sold out. It was already getting, but shit, we're watching it get more and more sold out as time goes on. So, but it's like, hey, we really, once again, we tell a young man, hey, look, you want to get some traction, let me hold pads for you on Melrose Ave in front of some graffiti, since that's what all these trainers over at the Rumbles and those sort of gyms are doing. So, yeah. So how to make money? How to make money in boxing?
I got a few listeners wrote in for this episode.
Yeah.
I asked people what they wanted to hear, because this is a money show. That's the topic. I asked a few people, how do you make money in the sport of boxing, and give me a 3-sentence response. Mm-hmm. My favorite one so far was, we don't. And that's coming from a guy who has multiple amateur titles, and it's just a God honest response. I got another cool one. This one's from Isaiah, who is going to be a guest in the future. He's a boxing guy, So I said, how does someone make money in the sport of boxing? And he says, his number one was knowing how to exploit people and fighters. This saddens me to say, but it's kind of in your face in this sport. It's almost like he was a fly on the wall here, right?
Yeah.
Conversation. But it's just a recognition of what's true out there. Number two, networking with powerful people, typically those with money and resources, which is my goal with this show in a sense, is eventually we'll build this brand, because I want to be a promoter someday, and I want to be able to grow something outside of my solo.
You want to take advantage of people.
Definitely, man. I want to be a flesh peddler.
Yeah, you're gonna do it differently.
Yeah. It's so much differently. We'll talk about that next. Number three, create a brand, and the best example being Golden Boy.
Right. Yeah. But Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, it was a bad motherfucker.
Him. And I think
and won a gold medal, and fucking it had multiple titles at different weight divisions. Yeah. And fought Bernard Hopkins at 160 when Bernard was on that. No, Oscar's a bad certifiable motherfucker.
Hell yeah. I love Oscar. Are you kidding me? I was watching Oscar versus Mosley 2 nights ago.
There we
first
go.
Fight.
And another guy.
But hey,
go ahead.
I want to say something about that too, though. This idea of Oscar probably has made, I don't know his financial situation, whatever, it doesn't matter.
I'm sure 100 million, 60 million.
He's been successful on both ends of it. One would assume he's made more money as a promoter than as a fighter, of course, right? But that goes to say that like those years that he was building himself, even though he was a top signy guy,
I don't think
cash
so.
Out you think he made more money as a fighter with top rank?
Yeah,
than he has with Golden Boy?
Yes, for
really?
Sure. You get a guy who's set 2.1 million pay-per-view buys for Oscar versus Floyd Mayweather.
But that was Golden Boy, bro.
No, that was a goal. Oh, you're right.
That was him. That's so we're on the same team here. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
You use those years of transition. So he was building a resume for literally a lifetime to be able to make this Golden Boy brand.
Right.
As Golden Boy, he has a bigger seat at the table because he's the promoter and the fighter.
Yeah.
So
Bob Arum has a healthy net worth, right? I want to say.
Yeah, he's got to be
a couple
rich
$100 million or
as
something.
Yeah.
So, but it's also Bob has been doing it for 3 decades.
Forever. He's had over 1,000 shows at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe well over 1,000, but it's something in that high range. Yeah.
I think that when people, I met somebody this week that wanted to be a cut man.
Everyone wants to know.
Yeah,
it's the new thing.
Isn't it funny?
You know what?
And he asked me, when I first said, I said, I'd have to see your car and your house to see if you keep it tidy and clean. Because only someone that, if you're wrapping hands and doing cuts, I imagine you have to have a lot of, I can never do it because I don't have that kind of OCD.
Yeah.
Like, especially their hand wrap guys, the guys that are good.
A lot of guys want to be hand wrappers because it's an opportunity to get yourself in front of the action when you don't necessarily have to be a trainer who has all this knowledge that's teaching young men how to fight. But you got to put yourself right in front of the camera if you had the chance.
I had a conversation with a guy.
And you got to look like a big time pro. You know
about this, and this is shit. I've obviously worked a second to a guy that's a Hall of Fame trainer. A couple times.
No big deal.
Yeah, no, I've been second assistant a couple times.
Who is it, for Jesse Reed?
For Jesse Reed and Joe Goosen. They're both going to be Hall of Fame trainers, right?
Oh, I thought you were saying Jesse is. Okay,
oh, yeah, Jesse Reed is a Hall of
Fame.
Yeah, they're both, but these guys are 23 world champions, 17 world champions.
Absolutely.
And I think Joe probably has more than 17. There is an art to being the second. And Jesse Reed had talked to this with me. It's like if this isn't, so when guys are out there and they're watching, boxing thinking, oh, I'd love to be in the corner. And they, perhaps they haven't paid their dues or been involved in boxing. A good second or a good cut man, a good, out there, there's guys just a name that come to my, names that are going through my head right now. Stitch, Roberto Stitch Duran comes to my head. Rudy Hernandez, Gennaro Hernandez's brother, comes to my head. But the guy from La Habra Boxing Club that was with Labrado Andrade. And I'm really sorry that I can't remember your name right now, but another great, Dave, it's maybe Martinez, but I'm not too sure on that. But great guys. Russ Abner is another guy from Rival. Yeah. Russ Abner, for the most part, is an active second, right? He's also working cuts and doing the hand wraps.
He's full on designing the glove to be what the fighter wants it to actually be. And he's producing.
These guys, the guys that know what they're doing, and even watching Russ. I mean, I've been in the corner with Russ Abner, another guy that know that just by being there and seeing the temperaments, seeing how these guys are handling themselves, as a second, being in position, if you're smart, you're learning on the job. You're watching these guys. But for the general public out there, like the young, the man that I met that said, hey, I'd like to be a second, or I'd like to learn cuts, or learn how to hand wrap. Do you have 10 years? Because it's going to take about 10 years for you to figure out to really to know what you're doing. The guys that know what they're doing, they're settling the fighters down. They're relaxing them. They're talking to them while they're wrapping their hands. They're occupying their mind with something besides a fight because they know they have to go up. They're putting the cold compress
behind the neck. That's why I love teams when the seconds are like family members and stuff.
Yeah.
I know you have an opinion on father coaches, whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you see the guys, the guy holding the spit bucket, doing the ice in the back of the neck. When that's his brother, that's his uncle, father.
Leo Santa Cruz has
there's a real reason for him to be there, and that's because
his brother was a fighter too. So
yeah.
This was to understand the sacrifice that it took.
And they know how to calm him down. They know how to get him ready.
They got that chemistry.
It's not just this like opportunity to be almost coach, so I'm going to be the cut man, even though I don't know how to stop a cut.
But so the first thing I tell this guy that he said, hey, I'd like to work cuts. This guy that came by the gym or learn how to wrap hands. I said, well, you should probably become as active as you possibly can with the amateurs. Yeah. And I also said to them,
volunteer.
Hey, there's certain people that in the corner that you don't want to have in the corner. And I said to him, and this is good advice for anybody that cares, that if you're driving your car and someone cuts you off and you have a biological reflex, which is to honk your horn as hard as you can and call the guy a motherfucker, you probably shouldn't be in the corner. because there's an inevitability that shit is going to go down in that fight.
You panic. Yeah.
And if you can't think clear in that moment where someone just cuts you off on the 7-10, cuts you off on the 101 or the 5 or the 405, then you definitely aren't cut for that cloth to be in that corner.
Yep.
Because you need equanimity, you need balance. And when we're talking about who is in that corner, we're talking about it's not when. It's definitely going to happen where shit's going to get heavy and you're going to want to have your wits about you. So if you're one of these guys, even if you're really good at keeping, all your Jordans are in the box, alphabetized. Alphabetized, thank you. If all your Jordans,
I don't know why you do that for shoes, but
maybe numerically by when they came out.
There you go.
All your Jordans are in and like that, and you got all your closets color coordinated. You might have the OCD. You might be able to do a good hand wrap, but if you don't know how to keep calm under pressure when you need to be to be calm, probably you're gonna have to work on that. So, not to say that you can't develop that, but it's like a craft of a fighter.
So. Yeah, it's interesting point.
Yeah.
Cool. You gotta be collected to do any one of those jobs. Fighter too. Coach too. Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I feel like we never really answered the question. But
how do you make money in boxing?
Get an Instagram account.
Yeah, get an Instagram account. I had another person write in a money question. I had listeners writing questions. I'm gonna go ahead and read it. He asked, "I've got $100 on the next big fight. Who do I put it on? If I lose, I'm unfollowing the podcast."
We're talking about Bud Crawford versus Amir Khan is the next big fight.
Yeah.
Well, that's the easy one.
That's the easy one.
Yeah.
But let's go into for a second. We'll wrap it up soon.
Although Amir Khan looks good in training, he's back with Virgil.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about boxing. There's a reason why you can never find a line on it.
Yeah.
Like you can't if I was going to go into Bovada, it would be so rare to find a boxing. Yeah. Because the odd makers aren't going to make a fight when they know Red's going to win.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no, you know what I mean? Like
listen. I bet on when Brian.
Only when it's truly a mega fight can there be a line that.
Is it Brandon or Brian Vera? Who's the guy that fought Chavez Jr. from Texas? Oh,
Brian
Vera maybe? I don't know.
I think I know.
He fought out at the Home Depot Center. Anyways, I had a little bit of idea what was going on at the Chavez camp because I knew some of the people that were training him, right? And I said, hey, I want to put my money down on. You trying to Daniel's on it. So I said I'm putting my money on Brian, all right? And he won the fight.
But it was just Chavez.
But he didn't win. But they didn't give it to him.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember thinking, I remember being there, there's no way. I remember sitting there at the Home Depot Center.
For Chavez Jr., yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, man, everybody knows here that Chavez lost the fight. It just would be too much of a robbery.
Yeah. Brian Vera?
Yeah, there we go. Brian Vera. Yeah, that's right.
He's doing announcing and stuff now, right?
I think so, yeah. He's a good guy. He's from Austin, Texas, right? Or somewhere near there. Yeah, I have a friend that was friends with him. But I said, hey, there's no way that this guy didn't win the fight. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you're trying to do the math. What was the spread? What am I about to... And then and the winner is Chavez. Yeah. So, boxing obviously is something that we're not unfamiliar with is the scorecards being very, pretty much.
All right, so one of the things I want to do as a promoter, I don't know I don't think there's a precedent for it, but who says that fights have to be an even number of rounds?
Oh, no, I think that's fascinating. You mentioned that to me before.
Yeah. I'm going to do 9-round fights.
Yeah.
So it makes it that much harder for us. Mm-hmm. If there's an odd number of rounds, what's the worst thing for a fight fan base? No one wants to see a tie, especially because it's a gladiator sport.
Some fights are draws, though. I do believe that, though.
I know, but I'm going to make it a lot harder because it's going to be an uneven number. So
the
we're not going 6 rounds and 6 rounds.
Kovalev Andre Ward, if it were up to me, would have been a draw. The first one. Obviously, Andre stopped him in the second fight. And obviously, too, another question that I live and breathe Andre Ward. I think that the guy's, one of the greatest of his time. But if I had to pick someone, I would have given Kovalev the nod over Andre Ward in the first fight.
Okay.
If I'm in a position where I have to pick someone, I'm not a judge.
So here's what
I'm
I
not
do.
in that position.
I'm taking away. It's an 11-round fight, and we're gonna figure out.
Some fights, when fights are a draw. Hey, the fight with Porter and Ugas, right? I thought that Porter had done enough to win the fight, but had it been a draw, was it a draw? I can't remember. There's so many fights. It
was a close. It was a split decision.
Okay, but Porter won, right?
Porter won.
Yeah, Porter did win. Yeah. But had it been a draw, I could have seen how that was a draw too. So, yeah. Any other questions we got?
I wanted to thank.
If you don't know to your friend, if he doesn't know
he doesn't know.
He's bet naive. On Terrence Crawford.
Oh, bet on Terrence Crawford. Give that to.
I'm gonna say bet on. But Terrence
I wanted to say thank you to Patrick Garcia for submitting that question.
Oh yeah,
and,
thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. We want to get people more involved. And say thank you to Patrick. Go visit his restaurant. He's a young guy who basically like a manager of this place and he's done a big job.
Where's it at?
New place. Here in San Pedro. Okay. Crazy Fish Grill Market. It's a awesome fast casual seafood place in San Pedro, and they have
Is he there now? Because I'm hungry.
Yeah, 2 to 5 p.m. They have happy hours every day. So, what's up? He's giving me a lunch.
Oh, okay. Can I get some fish?
He's gonna get lunch too. Daniel can get lunch too.
All right. Well,
so
sounds good.
They say there's no such thing as a free lunch in economics.
Right.
And they're absolutely right because I just had to read that.
Right. There we go.
Test. All right, that's it. We're wrapped.
All right.